As the Money Burns is an original podcast by Nikki Woodard. Based on historical research, this is a deep exploration into what happened to a set of actual heirs and heiresses to some of America's most famous fortunes when the Great Depression hit. Each episode has 3 primary sections. Section 1 is an heir to story. Section 2 goes deeper into the historical facts. Section 3 focuses on contemporary, emotional, and personal connections. Story recap. Stakes run high in the game of love. Huntington Hartford marries a dentist's daughter. Louise Van Allen weds her penniless prince. And Barbara Hutton dances with the eligible Prince of Wales. Now back to As the Money Burns. Served well. Plenty of antics occur both on and off the court at the world's oldest and most prestigious tennis tournament, Wimbledon. Will the Queen be amused, or will she declare off with their heads? Section 1. Story. A tennis ball spins in the air when a wooden racket slams it across the court. The game is in play. Tough, fast, fierce. Long-limbed tennis sensation Frank Shields uses his strength, speed, and power to overcome his opponents. With a mean right backhand, the 20-year-old out-jumps, twists, turns, sprints, and otherwise dominates his older opponent. Stamina and endurance being other key traits. He is a dark horse contender whose good looks and good-natured personality are getting as noticed as much as his serves. Currently, the number 2 American star player has increased visibility since defeating the former long-running American champion, Bill Tilden, only last year. Frank has made it to Europe representing America for the International Davis Cup and is now causing headlines during the most prestigious tennis tournament of all, Wimbledon. He quickly trounces his first-round opponent, veteran Dr. DBP Spence from South Africa, then takes down British favorite Bunny Austin in the second round. In both singles and doubles, Frank rises in the international ranks along with his teammate and former Roxbury classmate, Sidney Wood. Sidney already has the distinction as the youngest Wimbledon competitor when he played at age 15 in 1927. While they definitely have their individual star power on the singles matches, they sync well as doubles partners too. For these 2 tournaments, Davis Cup and Wimbledon, Frank commits himself to the sport and avoids most of the distracted partying he can so easily enjoy. The presence of his fiancée Billie Tinney and chaperone Mardbarger Wallach help keep his focus. However, the jolly schoolboy will never be completely innocent. The prestigious Wimbledon has several distinct characteristics, one being the ultra-restrictive fashion rules of white attire amongst players, a bright and searing sight on the brilliant green surrounding lawns for spectators, as well as the grass courts. To shade from the sun or rain, as has already troubled a few games, tents are scattered about for the nearly 2-week event. Another key restriction is the purely amateur status of all competitors. After a grueling set of morning matches, Frank and Sidney take a break and walk around when they discover an unfamiliar new tent. Curious, they peek inside the otherwise empty tent and spot a large silver bowl filled with lush, beautiful strawberries. The red fruit beckons the hungry athletes for a simple taste. They are amateurs, and Frank, at least, does not come from money. They are hungry, and it seems like such a waste for this fruit to spoil. Maybe they will taste just 1 or 2. That wouldn't hurt anyone, would it? They stare. The smell entices them to eat 1. Just 1. Finally, who knows which first succumbs and takes a bite? The burst of flavor is indeed wonderful. The other hesitates, then takes a bite too. Then another and another. Their hunger takes over as they devour a large portion of the bowl. They try not to get the red juice on their white clothes. They lick their sticky fingers and hightail out of there before anyone catches them. Later in the day, Frank and Sidney prepare in the locker room for their next set of matches. They laugh and joke as they jostle with other players. They notice a group of men walking around and questioning everyone. Eventually, security approaches their group, asking about strawberries. A strange question that the other players shrug off. Frank and Sidney look at each other, even more confused. They ask innocently, why does it matter over something like fruit? Then they realize, this isn't regular security. This is a pretty heavy investigation. The detective replies, that question is a matter of highest security concerns. The strawberries were in a nice silver bowl, but still, it was an empty tent. A nicely furnished tent, but this is Wimbledon after all. Nothing seemed too extraordinary. The detectives continued to question multiple people. Could this actually be Scotland Yard? To the side, Frank and Sidney immediately confess they are the guilty culprits. Then Frank and Sidney hear the inconceivable. Those were the Queen's strawberries. An hour later, Sidney and Frank return to the royal tent. There, sitting next to another bowl of strawberries, Queen Mary waits their presence. They bow awkwardly as they approach Her Royal Highness. With schoolboy charm and nervousness, they each apologize profusely to the Queen. She can barely contain her stoicism in suppressing her amusement. The young, good-looking American athletes are forgiven of their transgressions and released to continue their matches without any further embarrassment or public spectacle. The American doubles partners go on to beat the British doubles partners in their next round. The Queen watches them ever so intensely and somewhat amused. It feels a bit like the olden days of jousting. The American boys are exceedingly polite when their eyes meet with the Queen's again and again. A day or so later, in a bitter semifinals match, Frank battles the crowd favorite French ace Jean Borotra. Frank's energetic prowess wears down his competitor, who can barely keep up. During the 8th game, Frank rushes forward, twists his leg, and falls at the net. Instead of retreating to recuperate to the side, Borotra puts a coat around Frank's shoulders and massages the young player's leg. Borotra offers to continue the match later. From the royal box, Queen Mary insists the doctors check on the young athlete. After a few minutes, Frank gets up and hobbles along the sidelines. It's his serve next, and he's got a killer serve that could win him this game. He opts to continue playing. He makes the next 4 points purely off his serves. He regains his momentum. The 12,000-person crowd goes crazy for Shields, now cheering him on to his victory. For the men's singles final, Frank will play against teammate Sidney in an All-American match, continuing the legend of Bill Tilden before them. A day later and before the singles final, Frank and Sidney will play in another semifinals doubles match. It becomes clear Frank's leg is getting worse as the games play out. He has badly torn his ligament. Alas, the boys lose their doubles round, preventing an All-American contest in the doubles final. The American officials decide that Frank will not play in the singles finals against teammate Sidney Wood. Frank needs to heal in order to return to the Davis Cup matches. America has clearly won the Wimbledon men's singles, so they must ensure to keep the competitive edge for the other international competition, the Davis Cup. While Frank recovers from his injuries, he receives several invitations to finish watching the matches from the Queen's royal box. Sidney Wood receives the trophy for men's singles, the only uncontested Wimbledon winner not to play in a finals match. It is a hollow victory. Yet ever the sportsman, Sidney triumphantly walks the trophy over to their chaperone, Maud Bogger-Wallach. He gives her a kiss on the cheek and requests that she holds onto the trophy until he plays Frank in another similar lawn tennis tournament match, when at that time the winner will receive the trophy. It will take 3 more years until that day arrives. Section 2, History and Historiography. origins of tennis date back to the 12th century, with players hitting a ball with their hands likely inside a courtyard. It was not until the 16th century that rackets came into use. As the game progressed and grew in popularity with European nobility, indoor courts with hard floors of wood or stone became more common. The rectangular design of modern tennis courts started in 1875. In 1876, courts went back outside and on to grass surface. Hence the rise of several tournaments involving the new sport. In the 1940s, there is a reversal to hard courts but outside, and by 1956, the first clay tennis court debuts at the Gallia Tennis Club in Cannes, France. Wimbledon is the oldest tennis tournament and considered the most prestigious by many. The inaugural competition occurred on July 9, 1877, to be held over 5 days. However, the finals was delayed due to 4 days of heavy rain and held on July 19th. Spencer Gore defeated William Marshall in 48 minutes with scores of 6-1, 6-2, and 6-4. The only time Wimbledon has been canceled was during World War I from 1915 to 1918, World War II from 1940 to 1945, and during the first wave of the pandemic in 2020. One bomb did hit the competitor stand of the center court on October 11, 1940, and was not repaired before the 1946 tournament resumed. As for the other international tennis events, the U.S. Open started in 1881 in Newport, Rhode Island. The French Open started in 1891 and opened up to non-French clubs in 1925. The Australian Open began in 1905. Wimbledon began as a men's singles event, but by 1882, ladies singles and men's doubles events are added. In 1913, ladies doubles and mixed doubles are added. The first black player, Bertrand Milburn Clark from Jamaica, competed at Wimbledon, first in 1924 and again in 1930. Elsewhere in 1927, during a royal tour of the British Empire, Prince Albert, the Duke of York, future King George VI, and Queen Elizabeth II's father partnered in a doubles match with Clark, which was a very unusual display of equality among the races at that time. Before 1921, the prior year's Wimbledon winners would play the final challenge round. Thus, many winners would have successive years as they were well rested while their opponents competed up until then. But by 1922, even the past winners had to compete in all rounds, becoming a Grand Slam tournament. All events are single elimination rounds progressing to the finals, except the gentlemen's, senior gentlemen's doubles, and the ladies' invitation doubles, which are round-robin tournaments. The tournament was strictly for those of amateur rank. In 1968, the rules were changed for professionals to join. Wimbledon starts either the last Monday in June or first Monday in July and goes for 2 weeks. Wimbledon also starts 2 weeks after the Queen's Club Championship. It will be at the Queen's Club Championship in 1934 London when Sidney Wood and Frank Shields will finally have their match to settle the 1931 walkover at Wimbledon. As mentioned in Section 1, Sidney Wood is the youngest male competitor at age 15 in 1927 to play men's singles and doubles events, the third youngest winner at 19 for the 1931 trophy, and will later be the only finals winner to not have played the final set for the win. For the 1934 Queen's Club Showdown, Sidney wins and finally takes home the 1931 trophy, given back to him by Maud Barger-Wallach about 6 months later. Later in life, Sidney would design, invent, and patent a synthetic playing surface for indoor courts known as Supreme Court. Originally, tennis games could last for long extended periods. Thankfully, another Wimbledon player and a recurring character in our story changed that, Jimmy Van Alen, referred by his middle name Henry in our series. He plays at Wimbledon in 1922, 1924, and 1925, as well as the French Open in 1927 and the U.S. Open in 1931. Tired of the endless nonstop games ruining his cocktail hour, he developed the Van Alen Streamlined Scoring System, or VASSS, a scoring and tiebreak system. The VASSS is first used in the U.S. Open in 1970. Before that, matches could last all day long. Now at Wimbledon, the game automatically goes into tiebreak at .6 all unless it is the fifth match or third match where a 2-game lead must be reached. As of 2019, tiebreak is instituted in the finals match only at 12 all. 2 days after Jimmy Van Alen, aka Henry, died on July 5, 1991, Stefan Edberg lost to Michael Stich in a tiebreak during a Wimbledon semifinal. Upon learning of Van Alen's death, Edberg stated, "If he hadn't lived, Michael and I still might be out there playing." The longest Wimbledon match occurred in 2010 between American John Isner and French Nicolas Mahut during the first round of elimination, lasting 3 days, spanning 11 hours, 5 minutes of play, a total of 183 games, and 2,198 strokes. The long-running Wimbledon has several characteristic features, including the grass tennis courts and the strict all-white dress code for competitors. The tournament generally lasts 2 weeks between June and July. Rain has caused repeat issues, and there has been several attempts to provide a retractable covering over the main courts since 2019. Another long Wimbledon tournament tradition: spectators eating strawberries and cream. Strawberries are first mentioned in ancient Rome for medicinal use. In the 14th century, the French began cultivating strawberries in their garden. From 1364 to 1380, French King Charles V had 1,200 strawberry plants in his royal garden. By 15th century, monks would add wild strawberries to their illuminated manuscripts, as well as other Western European miniatures would also feature the plant. The whole plant would be used to treat depressive illnesses. The garden strawberry originated from Brittany, France in the 1750s, across from the eastern North American Fragaria virginiana and Chile's Fragaria chilionis. In the court of King Henry VIII, statesman and Bishop Thomas Wolsey is first known to combine strawberries and cream. By 1758, instructions for growing and harvesting strawberries appears in writing. During the 1931 Wimbledon tournament research, I have run across a few strawberry recipes featured in newspapers. I will include a few on the various social media and the website for As the Money Burns. Good sportsmanship, competition, and tradition are all emblems of Wimbledon. If only the rest of the world would be so orderly and genial during the battles over hearts and fortunes. Section 3. Contemporary and Personal Relevance. This is yet another story I have been dying to tell for a very long time. I discovered it in 2016 when Frank Shields kept appearing in the story of the other heirs and heiresses, especially John Jacob Astor VI, aka Jakey, and Huntington Hartford. Over time, I fleshed out Frank's story and reviewed his biography, Bigger Than Life, written by his second son. It not only had the strawberry story, but 2 interesting photos. There is a picture of Frank and Barbara Hutton with his first son, Brooke Shields' father. Another photo features Frank and Sidney Wood with an unidentified male, who I recognize as none other than William Van Alen, aka Sam, brother to both Jimmy Van Alen, aka Henry, and Princess Louise Van Alen Devani. Frank Shields is not an heir, but his athletic prowess and likable attitude brought him into the circle of elites. Frank was capable of doing what many in these tales struggle to do: have true and lasting friendships. He was liked for his personality and his acceptance of others. As mentioned in the biography, Frank and Sidney will have an ongoing friendship throughout their lives and long after their tennis careers. Now we have so much more the cult of celebrity with our sports stars. We can enjoy their performance on the battlefield, but rarely, if ever, do we see the glimpse of camaraderie and sportsmanship we see in this moment. As great as it is to have triumphal moments, the synchronicity and teammate experience can often enhance the enduring memories of these moments. Most of us will never compete at the level of Olympics or Wimbledon elite status. For most of us, it is the camaraderie and friendship in our childhood, school, and occasionally adult activities that make them so enduring. I always enjoyed athletics more informally, playing with the boys, whether kickball on the elementary school playground, ultimate frisbee during a summer high school program, or soccer on the lake during grad school. Even my biggest and most enjoyable triumphs have not been solo experiences. The high school competition history fair, where I first developed my skills for this podcast, was not a solo endeavor, but forever is embedded in my heart due to my team members. Back then, we didn't get the big win we wanted and worked so hard for, but I have always valued how much from the mentoring teachers, the fellow students, whether partners, competitors, or supporters, parents, especially mending my relationship with my father, and a very dedicated principal helped us all develop to our best potential through teamwork and cooperation, which pays off decades later in our different life and career endeavors. So even what might seem like a solo moment of glory, there are many that surround and support us, all served well by unifying participation and experience that binds us together. But unfortunately, there can be other binds that can bring one down, especially as our main heirs and heiresses don't always have the right team surrounding them. Speaking of great teams, I want to acknowledge the wonderful contribution to As the Money Burns by Past Perfect Vintage Music. Their amazingly digitally remastered collection from the 1920s, 1930s, and 1940s is featured in every episode and is one of the most universally appraised aspects of production. Their music highlights the transitions between sections and enhances the mood of the story. Past Perfect music is also featured in 2010 The King's Speech, the Oscar-winning performance where Colin Firth as Prince Albert aka Bertie, Duke of York, King George VI, overcomes stuttering before leading Britain through World War II. Want to hear more of their multiple album selections? Go to www.pastperfect.com. This upcoming Monday, June 27th, As the Money Burns will be featured via Good Pods and the OSA Collective. Check social media and the website for more details. Good Pods is a podcast app bringing together communities of listeners and creators. The OSA Collective is dedicated to helping female podcasters expand their reach. Next, when we return to As the Money Burns, despite what outsiders might think, family fortunes are not guaranteed. One heir finds himself bankrupt, divorced, disowned, and potentially disinherited. Until then. As the Money Burns is an original podcast written, produced, and voiced by Nikki Woodard based on historical research. Archival music has been provided by Past Perfect Vintage Music. Check out their website at www.pastperfect.com. Please come visit us at As the Money Burns via Good Pods, Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. Transcripts, timeline, episode guide, and character bios are available at asthemoneyburns.com.